fun by being out and about. Feel free to,
Yeah. Oh, I asked.
yeah.
No way.
I'm going to remove, well, I don't want to do that.
Fine with me.
I'm going to step back here and use my teacher voice. I want to first of all welcome you all here. This is going to be interesting and productive. Anytime you get folks together with common concerns and common interests, it's going to be worth our time to spend. I'm Don Adams, chairperson of the commissioners. I'm going to introduce my staff or my fellow commissioners in just a second. And then I'm going to introduce Kim Meredith, who's our president of our county council, our chairperson. And then I'm going to introduce the mayor, and he can introduce his folks, and then we'll be off. I think the meeting will, Josh, I'll introduce him after Josh is part of the, who kind of give us some purposes and lines out what we're kind of looking for. And but before we begin, let's stand and have, do we have a veteran? Well, I guess we'll just have to do it our way. Stand and we'll say the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Mr. Deckard was a veteran.
I'm going to try changing things a little bit. If you'll read the Pledge of Allegiance, there's no comma after one nation. I used to have a scout troop, and I always said one nation under God. So if you hear somebody doing that, it'll be me or one of my scouts. But I have to follow convention because you feel kind of silly saying it when nobody else is. So I'll introduce myself. My table mate here today is Brian Collier. He's been on the county, most of you know Brian from most good reasons. And I've enjoyed our first few months together as a commissioner. My other commissioner, or our other commissioner, is Kenny Hale, longtime friend and also a member of the county council for years and planning director. And I first met Kenny when I went on the council, and I don't remember the year, Kenny, but I was only there 2 years and didn't learn nearly enough. But I appreciate your knowledge. Working with our staff in the office of the commissioner's office is Josh Messmer, our county administrator, and the most important, you got to have somebody keep an eye on all things, is our administrative assistant, I think is what the official title is, but I just call it the go-to gal, because whenever I'm asking for something, next thing I know, it's in my lap, and that's a real treat, and that's Deb Verley.
Yes.
So, Kim, I'll sit down and let you introduce your staff, and then
Thank you.
we'll let the mayor introduce his folks.
All right, thank you. My name is Kim Meredith, and I am new in this position as chair. I have served on your county council. This is my second term, and I am your chairman. I would like to introduce my teammates on the council. The far end, we have Chip Keller. Then we have Jason Maxwell. We have Kelly Akala. We have Troy Sprinkle, and we have Vicki Kivett here. We are missing Dan Baston, or I'm sorry, not Dan Baston, Paul Prather this evening. He had some knee surgery and is not going to be with us this evening. But these are our teammates. These are the crew that set the budget for your county, and we all work together very well, and I'm very proud to be a part of it.
Flip it up, yep. I'm Kenny Costin. I'm fortunate enough to be the mayor for the city of Martinsville. I want to thank each one of you for coming here tonight. And Don, I always go back to Ken Addington. When we were in the Kiwanis, he always wanted to say, there's 3 pauses in the Pledge of Allegiance. So when you said about the Boy Scouts, it made me remember about Ken Addington. This evening for the city, we have John Lillywhite, who is a member of the Redevelopment Commission. We have Gary Oakes, who is the Director of Planning and Engineering. We have Al, which is on the Redevelopment Commission. We have their attorney, Dakota. Dare is also the president of the Redevelopment Commission. We have Phil Deckard II and Phil Deckard Sr., both of the City Council. Rich Griswold is on our redevelopment authority. Ann Miller, councilperson. Susie Lips, councilperson. And then Mac Dunn is our city superintendent. Again, glad that we have the opportunity to get everyone together to talk about this fantastic opportunity that Martinsville has and how we're going to plan it. Also, I see in the back Michelle Ball from the school, who's also on the redevelopment commission.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you for being here tonight. If you don't mind, I'm going to take this off for a minute. I do also want to point out that Brandon Schrag with Kimley Horn is back there if anyone has questions. Moving in tonight, I always find that it's helpful to sort of frame our discussion on the front end. You all, obviously, as elected officials, can take it wherever you would like. But kind of sketching out how I think tonight could be helpful, I want to go through that real quickly. I had not been aware of this, but in communication with Mayor Costin, the city has said that they would like to move forward with phases 1, 2, 5, and 6 of this plan. And so, as you all know, and some of the new faces here may not know, we met with the city last year with the first and initial meeting to talk about this plan. And I think as we move out of this meeting tonight, it would be helpful to leave here with some direction as a county. Do we plan to participate in what the city is doing? If so, to what order of magnitude financially we want to participate? And what would be some marching orders for the commissioners as we move forward to do that? And so that's a loose coordination of how I think we ought to handle tonight. With that, if the answer is yes, we do want to participate, then we should talk about how we want to coordinate with that with the city as well. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kim to kick us off.
At our last meeting, I think there was some discussion of were we in or were we out, so to speak. And I would like to say, yes, we would like to be in. And I am speaking as the council president. I think the rest of us feel that we would like to be in. In the numbers that were given, I can say from my point of view, we cannot be in at that level of play, so to speak. We, as a council, as a county, have a checklist of several things that we have to take care of that have kind of prioritized, or I have prioritized myself, and I'm sure my council members have prioritized as well. And while I don't want to call it a beautification project, it, to me, comes under kind of that umbrella of beautification. It's not a priority in what I see as when I look at the things that need to be done on a council standpoint and a county standpoint. So I'd like to open the floor for discussion as to would you like us still to be a part of it if our part were scaled back some? And I open that question to Gary or Kenny or whoever would like to discuss that.
I think that when I was campaigning back in 19, a lot of people got the misconception that I did not like, take my glasses off so I steam up, that I did not like the downtown project. I've liked the downtown project. I think it's a great concept, but we're not sold on the cost of that, and we still feel like we have not got any commitments to Kimley Horn, even though they've given us a nice concept of all 6 phases. We should still do our due diligence as elected officials and get the necessary bids and quotes in order to make this happen. As you know, phase 1 and 2 is basically redoing the alley off of Morgan Street going to the north up to Pike, there between Foley Peden and the smoothie shop. And it's also purchasing the 2 lots up on the corner of Jefferson and Pike on the east side and west side, and putting a stage in that area. Phase 3 and 4 is what really comes back upon the county, because in the drawings there's a lot of changing of parking and so forth in phase 4 that's on Jefferson Street and Washington Street. There are drawings showing I'll say a 0 incline there for more festivals and things of that nature. But here again, we can't do that because our property is basically just to that curb line of the courthouse. Now, 5 and 6 will really be done when we're through with the NDOT project. If you look through there, it's the resurfacing of Morgan and Main Street, which that's what NDOT's going to do for us. Then there's also 2 new stoplights that NDOT will be placing at Morgan and Main and Washington and Main for us. So really 5 and 6 is going to be taken care of through the NDOT project. Now, one of the things the city will need to think about is with the NDOT project, Jefferson Street has been changed from what we have been so used to. It's slowly soaking into my head that I don't have to stop there anymore. But as a city, we'll need to make the decision, do we fight it and change it back like it was, or do we see that this is a benefit and keep it going one way off of Morgan Street there? So that's something that we'll need to discuss when we get closer there. Also, when we are through with the project downtown, I know Gary Oaks and Frank Lane had went through. Initially, NDOT was going to give us no parking on Morgan Street. Well, they went down and saw that we could have some parking there on the north side of whatever, but when we are through, then we're going to need to restripe Morgan Street and put the parking back in where we can. So that's kind of the city's standpoint and timeline. Now, we would really like to get our stage area, entertainment area, however you want to refer to it, as part of our bicentennial. So that's kind of the timeline we're looking there. I know Gary's looked at several different options as opposed to some of the drawings that we had received, and I think that this is something that we could do in a timely manner. But the key is we're in the process of getting an environmental phase 2 completed on those 2 parcels of ground, and we really can't move forward until we have that accomplished. Gary?
Well, we have contracted for that environmental for the phase 2, and we're going definitely to move forward with those. You should know, as part of the county, and Kenny just mentioned the bicentennial, it's your bicentennial too, and we'll celebrate this all together at that point. 2022 gives us that opportunity, and if we can convert that easternmost lot into a stage and an amphitheater type construction, it would be ideal for some portions of that. We could celebrate a bicentennial throughout the year, so it doesn't have to be at a single place, at a single park, at a single time. So we have those kind of opportunities that we can do there. The city's RDC has paid for the vision that Kimley Horn has given us at this point. That vision has cost us about $650,000. And where we go forward and in implementing that remains to be seen. I mean, we'll have options whether we may contract some of these options ourselves. We may work through a general contractor to develop that. So we have some work to do ahead of ourselves. But RDC has gone out in the bonding process, and part of our bond includes this work. So we're definitely moving forward with that. So that's what we hope to accomplish tonight, is the city's appetite for increasing their portion of the work.
Now, you mentioned NDOT as taking part in some of this. So is NDOT footing some of this bill on the city side?
As they complete and open up, really it's going to happen, looks like the end of this year, November of this year. They're pledged to repave Morgan Street all the way through and Main Street all the way through. So in that cleanup process, Kenny mentioned some new stoplights and some new ornamentation that we may get out of it. So it's going to just clean up those areas in general.
Okay.
That's about the extent of it though, Kim.
Well, that's what I was a little, when you mentioned that, you mentioned portion 5 and 6, but we have 6 on here several places. Is that in all of those number 6 locations, or is there a more specific area?
Some of the areas number 6, I think outside of what I refer to as the downtown area, more or less just the downtown.
more the Morgan Street area and the, okay.
Are they gonna do all the way out to the bypass? Outside of this project? Will all of Morgan Street west to the bypass be repaved?
West of the bypass, yes.
Or west of Main Street to the bypass?
Goes from 39 bypass all the way through town.
Out to where?
Can't tell you for certain because our contract is just with city property, whether it includes your county property, because at about 44 Ruben Drive, that becomes county, heading on
Right.
to the Old 32nd. I'm not certain of that.
But you're saying they'll repave out to approximately Reuben Drive for sure?
And I would caution everyone that's looked at this over the last year plus, there are a couple of different versions of all this floating around that have some differences because the timeline for the county's portion of the project versus the city's portion of the project was adjusted to bring the cities to the front. So we're the first two phases there are, or it used to be the first phase was the county phase. So you should always be looking at one that says October the 12th on the front of it.
Yes, that's what I have. October the 12th. So that's the most recent. And so in that most recent number, dated 10/12 of 20, the county's portion still appears to be 3.95 million. And I'll be honest, I just can't see us committing to that kind of number. And if we've got input from other council members, I just, in speaking with my constituents, a lot of them had to say, we've seen enough work downtown. We don't want anything else downtown right now. Let us heal for a period of time. And I tried to explain to them that this is going to be after this project. And then I got the question, so you're going to let us get cleaned up and then you're going to mess us up again. And, I mean, they're honest questions. They're hurting. Your local businesses downtown are hurting, and some of them just out and out said to me, don't do this to us. And I tried to explain that it will be in phases and that the end project is going to be great for Martinsville, or I believe it will be. I travel to Franklin quite a bit in the summer, pre-COVID. I was there a lot for their outdoor concerts, just dinner in the evening, and I would love to see us look like something like that. But to the tune of $4 million, I just don't know if we can do that.
I agree with you in the fact that that's why, we're looking at 1 and 2, which is off the beaten path, kind of in the back, but is a way that we're going to generate some area for people to come into Martinsville. If NDOT comes in and does the repaving, and all of a sudden we've got to cut Main Street or Morgan, and it's just been paved, we're all going to say, what the heck, what are we doing?
Exactly.
So you're absolutely right. The merchants downtown have been subject to a lot this past year. Our water project was not friendly to them, they've worked through it. COVID's not been friendly to them.
Right. It's just been a rough year.
But here again, we just need to see, here again,
What level?
what the county wants to do. And again, everything's done in phases. So it could be a situation where, the county says, okay, 5 years from now, hey, we're ready to do this. We've had some surplus funds come in. We're ready to redo this. Again, we'll have to do correlation with the city to make sure, well, wait a second, we have funds to be able to do Jefferson and Washington.
Kenny, on that note, if we don't commit, how much of this is the city going to go ahead and do?
We're doing 1, 2, 5, and 6.
You will go ahead and do it all, okay.
I can't justify saying, yes, we're going to do 4, when a lot of that is looking at, and council, chime in, don't let me be the only one speaking. But it just doesn't seem right for us to say, yeah, we're going to do 4, with a lot of that approaching your property when you don't want to, it's not, I mean, that's not the best way to say it, but the county property's not gonna change it.
Right.
And Kim, to your point, and on the city's point as well, the RDC is going to look through and see and go line by line, not necessarily agree outright to those numbers, but to find a number that's more reasonable for everybody, because we too have projects that are extending beyond just the downtown plan. We have a lot of high priority projects that need to be done too as well. So we're not agreeing outright to the numbers either. Also to the effect, Franklin took 12 years to do their downtown plan. So in reality, this isn't going to be done in the next 2 years. It's not going to be done in the next 3 years, but it would be nice to lay a timeline so that we all can appropriately budget. And then speaking completely not in my capacity of RDC, but as a practicing attorney within your courthouse, there are severe security reasons why this layout makes sense. I have been there when it has gone wrong. I have been there when inmates come in and out and we're all coming in through the same door. It is not safe. It is not how any other courthouse that I practice in is done. So yes, in part it is a beautification, but that security purpose is a high priority for my profession and also just that the use of that property. It needs to have an alternative door. We cannot all be going in the same area. There's many reasons and plenty of stories that could go for hours as to why that's an issue. But
We say there are issues that are prioritized, that being some of them.
yes.
That need to be addressed in advance of this. But anyone else have comments? Chip, did you?
I'll just make a comment. Obviously, I have a very unique perspective on this whole process. One, I'm a downtown business owner. Two, I was on the city's redevelopment commission for a number of years and was involved with this project. And three, now, for the last month or so, I've been on the county council and I've started to see the county's needs. And I don't disagree with anything that's been said so far. I keep going back though in my mind that the reason the RDC started this project is we're trying to prepare and convert Martinsville into a 21st century city that's going to attract the best and brightest to come back and live in Martinsville. I've said it and I've beat it like a dead horse, but the city of Martinsville's population has been stagnant for way too long, 30 years. And we need to change that, in my opinion, for our tax base, for lots of reasons. Having said all that, I'm glad to hear the city's committed to the phases 1 and 2. I do believe in this plan. And I do agree that this is going to be a long process. Even if we wanted to do all these 6 phases, I think if we could do them in 5 years, that would be, that'd be a miracle. And now having seen, the county's needs, we have a bond that the county's considering doing for $15 million. And having seen all the needs that the county has, I agree that the county can't commit to doing the outside of the courthouse. The courthouse building itself has many needs. I think it's $3.5 million maybe we're looking at spending there just on the inside of modernizing that. And we could probably spend another $3.5 million if we really wanted to. So, there's a balance there. Having said all that, I don't want to see this plan just get thrown away. The RDC has spent way too much money to do that. And I do think it is very much a worthwhile project as a long-term goal. We talked about Franklin and how long it took them to do that. And this may change going forward, but I think as a goal, as a plan, that, we need to keep it alive and consider maybe after phase 1 and phase 2 get done, let's see how that goes. I think our citizens, I think the public are going to love it. It's going to be a great area to gather, increase our abilities to have festivals and just increase the interest in downtown, which will be good for everyone, for the tax base, for the businesses downtown. And then we see, and I think then we maybe gauge and see if the county has some interest in then redoing the public outside portion of the square there. So that's my 2 cents anyway.
Good points.
Well, my 2 cents is, I too, my daughter in the last years worked in Franklin, so I find myself there more often. And I do like going there for a day out, and it is a beautiful city and a wonderful courthouse. But I think about their tax base, and I was born in Lebanon, Indiana, and I find myself in Boone County a lot too. And just recently, when all this was being discussed, I just went up there and sat on a bench on the corner, and I looked at their paver streets, and I just looked, and during all that time I was in and out of there with the streets drug up and all that, and I know it was just a disaster. It hurt their businesses and all, just like this is gonna hurt our businesses and all that are already hurting. And then I think about our tax base. I-69 will be wonderful for this community, but we're probably 5 or so years off from seeing any kind of rehab from that coming in as far as our tax base and relocation of businesses, new homes, all that comes with it. I would love to see this happen. I just think we're putting the cart before the horse a little bit as far as our tax base. One thing, we do have the loan out to the RDC for the Waverly Sewer Project. We loaned them, I believe it was around $1.8 million.
Yes.
That they will be repaying us back sometime this calendar year. And if we could work with that money that's already on our books, I could see this and scale back our projected changes on these sheets. I could see maybe being a team player.
Right. And I think that's what we're hearing. I think we would, and again, I'm one of this group, but I think looking at maybe a $2 million commitment, maybe even a little over that, if we could rustle up some funds in our bonding and put that in there, but probably half. I'm thinking we could do half of what is listed here. And I mean, I'm not committing to anything by any means, but I do think we want to be a part of it. It's just at what level? Yes, sir.
Just a reminder, I got a text from somebody who's trying to watch online. Please use the microphones.
Oh, thank you.
So I'm brand spanking new here, but I'm a longtime resident. In fact, I don't live too far from where a lot of this will be taking place. Vicki, I really appreciate your comments, but I would take a slightly different view to it. There's an old saying in sports that you want to skate to where the puck is going to be. When you talk about 5 years down the road, we can recap and recoup some of this money because we'll have been dealing with everything and trying to catch up from I-69. I think you're right, but that's the time to be ready to take in all of that investment. I think we should be ready for that. I think we should be prepared and have the infrastructure already in place. You know, we should be ready for businesses to be looking at us or people to be looking at us as a community that's going to be a great bedroom community for Indianapolis. So, I mean, I would hate to say, hey, let's look at this in 5 years or start doing our part in 5 years, because then we're 10 years out or however long it's going to take, and it just puts us that much further behind. You know, I remember Franklin, you know, we talk about Franklin a lot. I did a lot of my growing up in Columbus, Indiana. 30 years ago, 25 years ago, Franklin wasn't what it is today, right? It wasn't this beautiful place where people go and go to the outdoor festivals and the concerts. That's really in the last 12, 15 years. And I think a lot of that is because they really invested. It really became a place to go. They put the investment in and then they realized their investment. So I appreciate that there seems to be some willingness to put some money in and to do something from the county side, and I hope that that is realized. I'm 100% with you. I think that some of the numbers that we're looking at here are perhaps unreasonable, and I think we should go through the process of lowering those numbers, but I would hope that there's a sincere desire to actually move forward and invest, and do it sooner rather than later.
And I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
John, well, it depends. Are you mad at that or happy about that? It's John Lillywhite. Or Mac Dunn, depending on how you feel about it.
I do want to play real quickly off that comment, just as a backstory. Chip mentioned that he had a unique perspective, and him and I were part of this process at the front end and got to go visit Franklin together. And my eyes were first exposed to this kind of project back when the Morgan County EDC funded me to go up to Ball State for their economic development class. And one of the big things that they highlighted on was that there's a shift in the way people find the place they want to live today compared to what it used to be. It used to be that you found a job and you moved there. Now the big push is what they call placemaking, and people move to where they want to live and they find a job secondarily. And the reason Franklin started what they did was because they said, we want to be that place that people start coming. We believe that once we build this, assessed values will rise. People will choose to make us home that might not have otherwise. And that's what we were exposed to when we went and met with them. And Franklin did say on the tail end that they absolutely, over time, saw those assessed values go up. Their tax base increased. But it took that partnership. It crossed, I think, maybe 3 city administrations. It was a county-city partnership, and it took over a decade. And so I think it sounds like everybody is interested in some level of participation, and I do think there will be fruit should we choose to go down that road.
Yeah. Well, I myself can speak. I mean, I don't know if we kind of want to have a consensus of interest, but I myself can speak to say that I am interested, and I think it's a great project and it's a great move, and I applaud you for starting it. So I think that, in my opinion, this county council member would be in favor of it at some level, so in partnership with you.
As far as going back through and eliminating things that were drawn in the plan, who meets on that? Like, when the county decides what we want in and out of what was proposed, do you meet with the commissioners?
Yep, my name is Brandon Schrag. I'm with Kimley Horn. We're fortunate enough to start with the project, and love to see the implementation as we're talking about here tonight. You know, I think I've been taking a lot of notes here. I think you've all really hit on a lot of the key points, you know, the momentum, the investment that's already been made, I-69, you know, all that that's going on there. As far as, you know, the numbers that were laid out, essentially what happened was over a course of, I think it started in late 2018 and it kind of wrapped up the end of last year. And we had worked with a series of various committees, essentially, that kind of spanned different projects, different phases of the project, is how I want to say that. Primarily, we've been updating the City of Martinsville Redevelopment Commission and you know, working with that steering committee that we had that did have both city and county partners on that committee. So I guess moving forward, what we would be doing is probably a joint steering committee of some sort. Makes some sense from my perspective. Obviously, we would all need to kind of talk through that and see who's comfortable you know, participating and doing what they'd like to do. But, you know, at some level, there is the size of the project. And when you get into the size of the project that spans several different blocks, you know, the numbers do tend to rise. So, and then there's the piece of how well do we articulate all the design elements and the ornamentation of that size. So there's a couple different conversations there, kind of what area are we looking at for sure, And then how well is that area ornamentated in that sort of way, as well as what's underground too. That's a big part of everything that we have looked at too. And so part of the numbers include the infrastructure. You know, we throw around kind of the word beautification, and it's, yes, there is that piece to it. At the same time, there's the infrastructure, there's the placemaking, there's getting all of the details right. Because when you do go in and tear up streets and you know, impact businesses, you want to do it right the first time. So I guess long way of saying, you know, I think a joint steering committee would be the best kind of partnership moving forward, that we could, you know, have ideas, have a conversation, and we could come back with different concepts and numbers for that committee to evaluate.
My question's kind of like if we eliminate some pavers and we eliminate water that sprays up out of the ground and certain things like that. Kind of like when you buy a car and you order it and you want, you know, electric windows and you want this and that, and what's the price tag for each of those layers of?
So is there an EX model and an LX model, and we can't commingle the two?
Right. And so in the line item estimates that we had prepared, you know, that's pretty simple to go through there and try to figure out some of those parts and pieces. The thing to remember is when you do take something out, you have to put something back in its place. So there is a cost for that. So it's not just, you know, taking out
Redlining some
not just
things.
line iteming it. And, yeah. So I don't know. Does that answer your question as far as there's options to do that?
My recommendation, I agree with Brandon to a point. You have a joint committee looking, you know, you have a commissioner, you have 3 councilmen, you have a couple from our RDC or RDA, maybe a couple of our councilmen. But I don't think we need to pay anyone else until we go through there and take away the things that we don't want, and then we can bid that out ourselves. We're accustomed to doing that and see what we can have come out from that. That would be my thought.
Guys, a couple questions I have. First off, I'm in the banking business, so for me, when we do a construction loan, it's very similar to what Vicki said is, you know, mom wants the very best cabinets and dad wants the very best man cave he can have. And when we get to the end result, mom still gets the best cabinets and dad gets an okay man cave. That's fine. It still works out for everybody. But the steering committee, I'm hoping will get together and make those needed consensus changes if need be. And I'm hoping we're on the same page with that. I think we are. When you guys first brought up the fact that NDOT was paving, did you say Morgan and Washington? And Maine?
And in Maine.
But also, we got to be, our water project's going on, so before too long, we're going to tear Jefferson Street up like we did Maine, and we're going to tear Washington Street up like we did Morgan. Part of finishing that is going to be new paving.
Okay. Are those numbers figured into?
That's completely separate from this downtown project.
Not into this.
Okay. Okay. Well, I agree with what's been set up here, and I mean, I think everybody's on board with the project. I really do. I mean, we're very proud of our downtown and what, you know, we want it to be and want it to look like. And I would definitely go with Kim and the folks up here that we want to be a part of the project, but at the level that we can be at. So that would be my opinion.
Commissioner Collier, you are a numbers man, and I'm sure you've gone through these numbers. Is there anything you have to input that you could see where savings could come in?
I'll tell you that there is a breakdown of the cost in their proposal because I've seen the number of pavers, the excavation cost. I've got a breakdown back at the office, and I know they can make it available if Josh doesn't have it.
Is it this? This was just handed out.
Flip the pages, does it give a,
It's a 2020.
it's,
Opinion of probably.
I got my glasses on, but it's still pretty far away. I'd say it's probably, if it's several pages and it goes on, because it lists the pavers and. Yes. Yeah, this gives you more of a breakdown of what they're proposing and where they come up with the 3.95. And I'm sure if everybody who's done anything with a two-by-four in the last 12 months knows that it went from $2 a stick to $10 a stick, and it's back to about $6.50 a stick if you can find a good deal. So these are all subject to change in their overviews, but I think if we get together with a steering committee, we can determine the type of pavers and how many pavers. And my concern, looking at the big picture from the county perspective, one, I'm in to beautify my backyard in my hometown and in my county. Knowing that, we've alluded to it. We got a report right before I got off the council that we have about 3.6 worth of necessary needs to our courthouse. So there was an argument made at our first meeting that we have a very beautiful lawn surrounding our courthouse and they didn't want it touched. I get that and I respect that. We're probably going to end up touching quite a bit of it when we dig up for the heating and cooling system that we'll probably have to replace. And that's the time that we can go back through and combine some of our projects to possibly put that turnabout on the north side of the square for the dropping off and the collecting of people going to court for criminal reasons. So it's that type of thinking that I think we can find a cost savings back to the taxpayers to where they don't get quite the sticker shock of 3.9 in a courthouse that they think is beautiful because it's got beautiful Christmas lights and it's had a Christmas tree, but they're not going in, they're not working, they're not going to court, they're not getting inside the building. None of us probably understand, nor do we want to, what's underneath the yard when we get into the soft costs and start digging things up. I know one of the things that I wanted right out of the gate as a commissioner was to put a fence around the dumpster that's on the north side of the courthouse where we throw away all our trash. But there's so many electrical and phone and everything wires underneath, they don't know if they can locate them all. So it just seems like one thing leads to another. Something as simple as building a fence around a dumpster, so when you go down Morgan Street and you see our beautiful courthouse in a square that's put millions of dollars to fix up, and you have to look at our dumpster, I'm working at it, but I didn't anticipate having so much underneath that beautiful lawn. With that said, before I got off the council, we talked about when we got the 1.8 back from the redevelopment, that could be our seed money to work on this. So I still think to the city and everyone involved on that side, we have a means to start some of this, but I do think it's essential that we sit down, we look at the proposal. You know, ideally, if I was in charge of it and I only had to answer to myself, I think our courthouse is beautiful. I think the lawn is great. Can we improve it? Yes. But basically from the sidewalk out, I think that needs a lot of work. I think it needs work not only just for this project, I think it needs to be redone. And capitalize on that between your 5 and your 6 with what NDOT's doing. I'd hate for us to come back at a later time after the city gets NDOT to pave it. I mean, that's, in my opinion.
Seize the opportunity.
Yeah, and it's backwards. So, Kim, to answer your question, thank you for asking. I think we should be on board. I think we should be on board within reason. I do have a question. When we look at these figures, and the city has stated a couple times tonight that they are going ahead with 1 and 2, well, that's a 4.7 on this. What are you anticipating your budget to be on 1 and 2? 4.7? You've given the green light to go with 1 and 2. Are you funding $4.7 million
No,
for?
I'm thinking that I can bring this budget in at $2.5 to $3 million, simply enough. And I think that's what we need as guidance out of you tonight. I've heard alluded to 1.8 and 2.0. I think And the mistake that we may have made as an RDC is not giving Kimley Horn the guidance of, okay, we want to spend X dollars. You've got to bring it into that. Don't bring back a dream to us, bring back reality to us. And I think that's, when you set up a steering committee, you're going to have that kind of guidance to whoever you hire to do that design for you. This, we're going to do this for 1.8. Show me what I can do for 1.8.
Show us what we can do for this. This is what I have, show me what we can do.
And based upon his answer, that's about a 40% cut from what's presented on the projections. And now you're getting more back in line what you guys as a council have committed to, which makes the project, in my opinion, doable. We just have to sit down and cross our Ts and dot our Is and get on the same page of, for that amount, what we're going to get for it and what we want to do.
How many in the room tonight were on the steering committee? I know Chip, Gary, John, Al, okay. You know, if that steering committee, they did a lot of work, a lot of good work. It'd be nice if they, again, they've heard, or you've all heard our concern, if the steering committee would stay intact and go forward with kind of what we've talked about would be great, in my opinion.
Yes. No. No. Well, they can ask, but no.
Kenny raised his hand. Josh was on the steering. Don would like to see a show of hands of who was on the original steering committee. Chew.
Okay.
Ryan was, Daniel was.
Yeah, I couldn't hear it all, and
Wasn't me.
I'm not volunteering, because I think you've got a great steering committee. But I just wanted to see who it was and appreciate their challenge, and I see they're up to it.
Craig Penman was on there also.
Okay.
Finman on there. Laura was on there, Craig Finneman was on there. Michelle Moore was on there from the hospital, or a school. Who? Oh, yeah, Jason King from the hospital.
Who was the home base representative?
Lisa Arnold was, yes.
Who kind of took charge of that committee? You?
No. No, but I know me and Ryan had met with Dave Rogers before I took office back in late 18. Listened to what they was wanting to plan for the north side, the north entryway and everything. So Ryan was in several of the meetings, but he wasn't in all of them. But basically, Kimley Horn run the meetings, and we all was just, you had a good participation, Kenny. You really did. A lot of good input from several people on there, but there wasn't necessarily one person driving it, no.
Typically get communications back and forth between the group.
So Gary, did I hear you say you're willing to?
Oftentimes on construction projects, costs run over. Gary, you can address this probably better than I, but is there some contingency built into this for that?
Yes, there is, and there's an inflation factor built into it as well. It's a 3% inflation factor and a contingency both. What's not built into it, and what's potentially really costly, is handling your utilities. Relocating utilities is quite expensive, and you're pretty much at the mercy of the utility company. What Duke says it's going to cost is what it's going to cost. And none of those numbers are included in there.
That's true there.
So I guess for logistical purposes, does the council wish to proceed with the current steering committee? Do you want to add members to that steering committee so that we can take the next steps forward? It sounds like on both sides, we're all willing to do the project. We just need to go through with our pens and figure out what is the number we can actually do and proceed with.
There's been a fair amount of turnover on both sides, so
Right.
I think we need to
Yes.
definitely add some new members.
I was going to say, do we want to do a show of hands of who would be interested in serving on the steering committee?
How many people do you need on the steering committee?
Yeah, that's a good question. Dakota, you've done this before. How many did you? Okay.
That brings up a good point.
By all means, the council should have your faces present in that steering committee as well. So I know there will probably be a lot of the same original members, but on your front, there aren't as many. So if you do have volunteers, we can add that to the steering committee, to which Gary Oakes volunteered to coordinate. And then we can get that moving forward, because that sounds like the next logistical step that needs to happen on all sides.
Chip, with his experience, having been on the steering committee previously, and we needing a voice of experience, I would hope you would be interested.
I would be willing, absolutely. If someone else,
I think Josh, or Jason.
Jason, I
don't
would
know why I
like to
keep
see
wanting to call
Josh
you Josh
also
tonight.
maybe participate again. I was just going to point out, you mentioned the downtown business owners. It's probably important to get another downtown business person to be involved too, because the previous comment of fatigue with construction is very true. I can attest to that, so we need to make sure we hear their voice.
So are 2 hats from our council enough?
Yeah, because we'll have Kenny and
Yeah.
we'll have other representation.
I wear enough hats, I don't want another one.
Commissioner, you have
I know
that?
from the school, Don Lips, while he's recovering, had expressed a real interest in serving on that board.
Okay.
I know John Badger was on that, and Pam Hurst was also.
Gary, are you making a list?
I am.
Oh, you are, Dakota. Thank you.
Yes. Al, are you in round 2?
Hats.
Does anyone know if Craig Finneman is also going to stay on? You will.
Yeah, he needs to be on it. Yeah, I think he was. And then Brian, are you on it from the commissioners? Oh, I thought you already were.
Adams?
Yes, he said yes.
Brian, our numbers guy, are you on? Brian Collier?
Kenny, are you okay with that? Yes. If I'm at the firehouse, I apologize, but that's where most of the meetings are anyway.
We call that being vol-enforced.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So I have 12 right now.
Plenty.
Yeah, I think that's a
Probably
good
too
number.
many.
Okay.
You got an even number, though. You better hope you don't have to vote on something.
That is very true. Yeah, Gary tends to always break the tie. I did not have Gary on that list, so that makes it a 13,
Hasn't been in the past.
if anyone's not superstitious.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's a very big step forward, so thank you on all sides for that. And we will get that list sent out. Gary will send that out for scheduling and coordinating of meetings. Is there anything else that the council would like to bring up or hash out while we are all in the spirit of agreement?
Glad to partner with everyone to make Martinsville a better place.
I agree.
We've come a long way so far.
Appreciate all of you taking your time to be here. I know we all have busy schedules, and sometimes it's hard to coordinate those.
Thank you, everyone. We appreciate it. Don, do you want to entertain a motion?
Thank you. I was just reminded of myself that last Friday afternoon in this very room, we met with our RDC and our regional sewer board. And it was like a 10-year project that culminated in this room with I think, a great benefit to the county. I don't know that it'll take 10 years for this, but I know that we've made a huge stand, and it's kind of an exciting time to be a part of this whole project and a part of this county, because I see growth and I see positive cooperation, and I'm glad to be a part of it myself.
I had just mentioned how hard it was to get that project together and how amazing it was walking away from that meeting right before this started. And I said, I have a good feeling about this one. If that last one was pulled off, we certainly can do this.
Certainly can. Thank you, Dakota, and thank you all. I think we've covered all the territory we need to cover. I'll take a motion to adjourn. Second?
Second.
And thank you for being here. It's been a pleasurable and a productive evening. Thank you.